Welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everybody, it's William Harris here, founder and CEO of Element and the host of this podcast where I feature experts in the D2C industry sharing strategies on how to scale your business and achieve your goals. My guest here today is Brad Sorock. Brad has been in e-commerce since 1999 and has started over 50 websites. He recently launched Returns for Sale to help websites with returns that can't be sold as new. He survived a near-death COVID experience in 2020. We're going to talk about that today. And has since shifted his life, including a 4-month on and off road trip. And one thing that you didn't have in here that I wanted to talk about too is you are in the book Traction with Gino Wickman. You are actually in the book, and I talk about this book all the time. You're in the book, but I'm excited to have you here, Brad.
Oh, thanks. It's good to be here.
Yeah, well, before we get into the good stuff, I will make sure we say the quick sponsorship message. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly $800 million. And we were ranked as the 12th fastest growing agency in the world by Adweek. You can learn more at our website, www.element, spelled ELUMYNT.com. That's enough of the boring stuff. On to the good stuff. I want to find out about your journey to starting 50 websites. Like, what was this like as far as you saying, hey, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm going to go after this? What was this like?
Well, yeah, it does go back to 1999 and the world was a completely different place then. So, but at the time I had a specialty fly fishing outfitting business in a small ski town in Colorado. And we did Nordic skis in the winter. And so I was really specialty. And at the time, people were trying to be everything to everybody.com. That would be babymall.com or planetoutdoors.com, pets.com. Mm-hmm. And I was on my bike one day, well, what if we niche this down? And I'd already started telemarkski.com, which most viewers won't know what telemark skiing is, but it's a form of downhill skiing with a free heel. And so I was the guru in this telemark world. I was doing reviews for Cool R magazine, and it was really fun. There wasn't much money in it, but I thought about while I was riding my bike, like, what if I niche this down? Instead of like watches, I did when I was selling Suunto watches, which is a high-end Finnish brand from Finland of altimeter watches. So I called up Suunto and I talked to my rep, and they're like, yeah, this is a great idea. We've heard of the internet. This sounds great. And I did suuntowatches.com. And then my son was born, and I was walking down the street and saw a jogging stroller, and I looked up for jogging strollers, and it was babymall.com, and it was just cut and pasted reviews. And I decided I'm going to write my own reviews. This is like unheard of the internet at that time. And I did joggingstroller.com. And so with that, it just kept rolling and rolling of ideas. At that time, it was the Wild West of like, I mean, I was in my kitchen, like I could do silverware.com, I could do forks.com, or just, just anything. And so my ideas were just rolling and rolling. I'm not a coder. And back then you didn't have Shopify. It was pretty tough to get in. How do I build a website? How do I do a cart? You had to build your own. I mean, so I wound up partnering with a guy, and that's when I learned about I'm this visionary. I don't really have a skill set. I just got a lot of great ideas, and I'm good at relationships, and I can talk my way through stuff. The first year we did, was maybe $175,000 in sales. I thought that was a whopping great way to go. I was working out of my house. And then the next year we did 2 million, and the next year we did 6 million, and the next year we did 10 million, and just kept going. And that's when I got involved actually at 2 million to on your point of Traction. And that's why I'm in the book maybe with Gino. We were his second client. His first client was my partner, but, and Gino, I remember it was, they all do a deal, if it's not worth it, you don't pay for it. It was like $1,000 or something really absurdly inexpensive. And I was hesitant, but it was, of course we did it, and it was just phenomenal. And I think the reason I'm in the book, I mean, we did have a classic visionary owner, integrator, and then all the boxes underneath. And I also, when he was writing the book, he reached out and said, do you happen to have those saved accountability charts? And I was like, actually, there's this thing called PDF. It's this new thing, and we've saved them. And so we had all those, and he was able to put them in the book. And
wow.
It wasn't some special that we were all that special, but we were one of his first and when he was writing the book. So Anyways, fast forward. And one of my big piece of my life was I grew that business. We had about 85 employees at our peak, did almost 20 million in sales. But I had a lot of questions of like, where do I want to be? And Gino would ask me that same thing. And I didn't see myself as a guy who was going to run a $500 million company. It's just wasn't, this isn't in my cards. It's not who I want to be. I think that
Mm-hmm.
we have to project what we want to be. And I'm not going to be a billionaire. I don't want to be, I don't need to be. And so I was questioning a lot of that. But ultimately in 2009 with the crash, things started to turn. Amazon was now our competitor when they were only selling books when we started. The barrier to entry to e-commerce was much easier now. Yeah, we had joggingstore.com and we were selling 25,000 jogging stores a year. But then there was joggingstoreforbaby.com, joggingstoresuperstore.com. It was just on and on, like, oh my God, competition's just crept up. They figured it out. Instead of bidding 2 cents on what used to be GoTo and then Google bought them, but is now, now it was $3 to get a bid. I mean, so the world changed. Anyways, and on top of which, personally, I was going through a divorce and I had young kids. In 2011, I actually closed that business. And nobody teaches you how to close a business in business school. Maybe they should, I don't know, but it was a lot to go through. And I was in my apartment that I called Scratch, because that's like starting from scratch. This is what it would look like. And I had at one point, like I'd gone through this divorce. I owed my ex-wife a lot of money monthly for 10 years. I couldn't get out of it. I closing my business, which was going to take months to do. I was curled up in a ball in my apartment. Like, how am I going to pay like next month's rent, let alone my ex-wife and my son's private school? And oh my God.
Yeah.
And ultimately I woke up on Monday morning, and that was like an anxiety kind of attack, I guess. And I woke up on Monday morning, and unfortunately it was sunny out. And I remember it was like in May, and I was like, oh the only way to go is forward. And I had met with a bankruptcy attorney, and he said to me, I was like, I mean, could we go to jail for this? Like, we owe these people money. And he put his pen down and he said, there's no debtor's prison. This is America. It sucks. You've lost everything you have, but you can start over and you can do this again. And so then I realized, like, okay, and he really helped me see this is just a chess game. You can play this out how you want. So, and then I thought, I'm a visionary, as in the book with Traction. I'm this classic visionary. I've got ADHD. I'm all over the place, and I got bright and shiny objects everywhere. But what's my skill? Like, what can I do? I got to support my family here. So, but I realized, I guess I know more than I thought I knew. And I also have a lot of what we call chutzpah. I had this, like, I'll start something. I'll make it happen. And we slowly built this, and we had, and I'm a big believer of setting these goals, right? And I was set out to, like, well, first we're going to do this bridge, and we're going to set the intentions, setting intentions, and where do I want to be, and where do I want to go with this in my life, both personally and professionally. And at the time, I remember sitting on the stoop of my apartment, and I'm just like watching the grass grow. And I saw this guy running down the street, and had his son with him. And his son was like maybe 5 years old, and he's riding his bike next to him. And I remember thinking, I used to do that with my dad, and I want to be around for my kids. And if I could project this and set intentions, like, first and foremost is going to be a dad. Part of being a dad is providing for my family, so I have to do that. But so I set out with that intentions of a new lifestyle for myself. And fortunately, I was able to build, and things are never as bad as they seem. I know it's a cliche, but it was true. And I got through and realized, like, what's really making me happy in life, and making me happy isn't thinking about how I could be doing or how other people are doing. Happiness is from within, and the gratitude of the day, and it could be anything from the sunshine. So that journey led me to, I guess we're segueing into where I am in now. And so, that business of $20 million, we had started at least 50 websites. I think by the end, and there was huge successes, or, it was probably the 80-20 rule of 20% of our business, of our sites were 80% of our business. And so we had some failures, we dropped off, but it was constant with my mind going of trekkingpoles.com. And so I now have a business. It's a distribution company down in Australia, which is really doing well, and it's really fun, and we're helping people. It's not totally my passion because it's somebody else's business. I'm the distributor.
Okay.
And I found with myself, yes, it's rewarding, it's feeding my family, and I like to grow the business, and we are, and I've got great people in place, and I took all I knew from traction of right people, right seats, and do that, and it's great, but I needed something to have a passion for. And I think that everyone should have that, whether it's your kids or ourselves, or even I was just reading about a guy who's 100 years old, and his son was saying, well, he has this passion. Like, that's what we need. And so, and some call it a hobby. You can do that if you want, whatever it is, it's just got to be a passion for something. So I've realized that I'm going to, I started helping with people with returns. It was a major issue for us. We were getting returns for sale. Like I said, we were doing 25,000 jogging strollers. We had a low return rate of 3%. That's still 750 strollers a year that can't be sold as brand new. They've been opened. I mean, they can, they're in the box, they go on the shelf. So somebody tries it out. It's perfectly new. What do we do with it? We could have eBayed them. But I started this business called Returns for Sale, and now it's on the Shopify platform, which is makes the barrier to entry so easy for anyone. And a lot of people have these returns. You try out this stroller, you send it back. Well, what do we do with it? So now I can put it on. It's a little widget that goes on their website that says, hey, we used to be $500, now it's $400, and it'll drip at 1% a day. And I made it seamless and easy to post, and it takes a minute or less. And it's really fun and really rewarding when I'm helping people get rid of these returns that can't be sold as new. And so that's been in my professional life has been my passion of helping people. And it's sort of been, because I make a good living, I'm like, it doesn't have to be about the money. I mean, yes, it is about the money. At the end of the day, it needs to be profitable, but it's really, I'm focused on how can I help you and help you solve this problem with my tool. And maybe I can improve on this. And that's where my visionary skills come in. So that's where I'm at today. And my career path of how I got 50 websites. And
that's a wild journey. It is. I mean, and if you would have told yourself that would be your journey at the start of that, you would never believe yourself, right? Like it's not something you could write down ahead of time and say, this is where I will be. You do have to have, a vision of it, but then you also have to be willing to kind of go through the open doors that are there. And it reminds me of, you were talking about like moving forward. And I know Disney has a quote, which I think is just literally keep moving forward, which is one of my favorite quotes. There's a verse in the Bible that I like that's along those lines too. Proverbs 16:9. It says, in a man's heart, he plans his paths, but the Lord directs his steps. And just the idea that it's like, look, have your plans, but be willing to allow your steps to be directed, I think there's just so much to be said for you being able to see this, to take those steps, to pivot where you needed to pivot. But ultimately, the core under all of those really was helping people. That was the core of all of these businesses. You wanted to do it because you're like, hey, I want to review these to help people find what they need to have. Or now it's, okay, I've found this problem for myself, but other people have these problems too. How do I solve these returns problems? And that's kind of like central theme to that. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I mean, there's another quote that John Lennon said, life is what we do while we're busy making plans. And I look back and told myself, now that I'm 53 years old, I certainly have a lot more I didn't understand at the time, this wisdom of life. And maybe I probably would have said to myself, like, just relax, like everything's going to unfold as it should. But you can't really see that when you're 30 years old starting a business. It's go, 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 and I got to do this. And so it's been a really fun journey, but the entrepreneurial path is it's not for everybody. I've realized that. Like, why don't other people start this? It's so obvious. Like, well, not everyone quite has that, and that's okay too. The world needs those people too. So we just have to we just go with it. Knowing yourself? To know yourself is the foundation stone of all true knowledge. So tell me a little bit more about, how Returns for Sale works though, because I know that a lot of people listening have e-commerce stores.
they are experiencing the exact same problems that you're experiencing. What is this? How does this actually go about solving it versus just doing it on eBay?
Well, so there's all sorts of everybody, well, maybe not everyone, but most companies have this problem. I use the jogging store, but say it's a pair of shoes. Okay, so you sell a pair of shoes, somebody wears it once, they get a blister. In this day and age, you kind of got to take it back. You can't say, no, you wore it once. We used to say that, but you have to take it back if you're going to be competitive, because Zappos does. And so what do they do with it? And then you need this strategy of what are we going to do with our returns that can't be sold as new? And maybe you have a store and it goes out there and it goes on the street and they get piled up and you sell those shoes. That's one option. Maybe you're in a place where you can have a warehouse sale. eBay is a good option in certain scenarios, but it costs a lot and it takes a lot of time to input that. It's not automated. Right now on the Shopify platform with mine, one of the goals that I worked with as the visionary of this was, and I'd speak to my developer, we talked a little about like the art. We said, like, I see this as my art in that I saw this artist at a street fair and he had this beautiful big sculpture. I'm like, how did you even like build this? And he said, man, it's like, that's what it took that's what it takes of an artist. You got something in your head. How do you make it?
Yeah.
How do you form this? And that was the whole thing. And that's why I'm an artist. And I thought it's kind of what I'm doing too, really. I mean, I guess entrepreneurialism is an art. And I had this idea and I put it on a napkin when I thought about it and drew it out, this widget. And then I put it on paper, and then I have a developer that's going to build it. So, all right, we got a chicken.
Why not?
This is the first time I've had someone do this. Does the chicken have a name?
I don't know their names. My daughters all know their names. I can't keep them apart.
Are they like Julio and Chicken Kiev, or is it like a...
They do have some funny names. They have some also very normal names. I think one of them's like Cruiser, just for fun.
Right.
But I think there's a Henrietta. It's like Henrietta VIII. I will say that the dumbest chickens that we've ever had are called Silkies, and they're really funny looking chickens, but they have no sense of self-preservation at all. They will just walk right up to the dogs or anyway. They're just like, hi, how are you? Like, let's meet and hang out and be friends. And the dogs are like, oh, good. I can like just chew on your neck here. This is fun. Are
these for eggs, for food, or for fun?
Yeah, eggs and fun. Never for food, at least for these ones.
Right. But, yeah, that'll be a tough day when you have to figure out what to do with an aging chicken with kids. Hopefully they'll be old enough by then.
Well, they don't live very long, so we've handled it already a couple of times. But we don't. Once they're old enough, if they die on their own, I don't want to take a chance. I don't know whether it's healthy to eat or not. I'm not that good of a farmer, right? So we just.
Right. But, that's nice. He looks like...
Yeah. That's it. Very tangential. Back to the ADHD thing. I was like, oh, I knew that you would appreciate this, at least that I could bring a chicken on this show. For another reason, a buddy of mine, Aaron Orendorf, he's got his rabbit every once in a while sometimes. So I was like, I'm going to one up him. I'm going to bring a chicken on the show. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah. I assume you're at home and you don't bring the chicken to the office.
No, I'm at home. Yeah. No, exactly. But we were talking art and I interrupted with a chicken. I apologize.
Right. That's the ADHD. It's all good. So that art. So I was able to put it to a napkin, to a piece of paper, to the developer. And I'm assuming you're still in there.
I am. I'm just letting the chicken back outside.
So we put it to piece of paper and so that was the art. Okay, yeah. So part of it was, this is where I was it needs to take less than a minute. We can't have this, like eBay can take 10 minutes. Maybe if you're really good, 7 minutes. I mean, and I would test and test. It's got to be under 1 minute. Okay, well, all these things that I had in mind that have to be are going to be. It can't be intrusive. I want this easy to use. On the back end, we don't need a whole bunch of return products building up, and then you got all these just nil products, so it disappears once it sells, and make the widget disappears from the website. So having been in e-commerce for 20 plus years, and having been I was Shopify number 520 or 5023 back in 2011. Now they're up to like near 2 million. I've been through Shopify a lot to know like, all right, well, this is how it needs to work on the back end. So what we want to do on the front end, we got to work with themes. So I had a fair amount of experience that helped me do it. But don't get me wrong, it was like, it's still, as the entrepreneur that not everyone is, you have to be able to take that step. Like ultimately it's like, all right, should I go for it? I think it's a good idea. When you're going out to people, at first I was like, I don't want to tell anyone my idea. Like, whoa, this is, I may patent this and it's my idea.
Sure.
Someone's going to take it. And then I was like, this is crazy. Like, just let it go. Like the idea is helping people. Is someone really going to take this and run with it? But I wanted to get feedback, and the best feedback you get is like, oh dude, you can't do that because, or that's not a good idea. Like, tell me that, shoot it down.
Sure.
And nobody was shooting it down. And I was talking to other e-commerce owners and everyone had the similar reaction to you. Like, well, everyone needs this, don't they? Like, how do you get rid of returns? So I was feeling confident, and ultimately I had to roll the dice and write a check and say, all right, let's go for it. And of course, in my position, as I'm not a developer, everyone wants, maybe I could find a developer to partner with. That would be great. And then it will be free. And I think developers probably get hit up like that constantly. And my developer was like, this is your idea, man. You want to go for it. We can talk down the line. I don't know. So I'm like, yeah, it's my idea. I'm going for it. And that's the chutzpah. Like, all right, go for it.
Yep.
And fortunately, then with anyone from Jeff Bezos on down, there is some luck in timing. And I happened to be at a ECF thing where I met you. I was at one of those and I ran into a guy who's got an automotive store. And when he's doing returns, he's like, oh man, it's a huge problem. We got a pile in the warehouse. In fact, it's one of our rocks, speaking traction for my operations guy to get rid of. What are we going to do with our returns? And I was like, I got this idea. He's like, yeah, we'll look at it. Yeah, sure. I'll send it to him. Shoot me an email. And I sent him an email and the guy's like, this is actually kind of cool. This might help us. And so they tested. And within 4 months they had it up and they were selling returns like crazy. Now they have thousands on there because it's really, I didn't even think of automotive. I was more in my own baby world of jogging strollers or shoes or, and it's like, oh yeah, you try on a muffler. You start the engine. It doesn't sound right. You send it back. It's missing some bolts. It's dinged or whatever. And they can't sell it as new. It's sitting in the corner for a 2006 Subaru Forester, like it's so specific. Now they have this tool and they love it. And so so that was my luck and timing, I think, to have that first client that happened to be a, $30+ million company, to give it a go. And so then actually I started to get more automotive because their competition saw it. And then I was able, it keeps snowballing and we're still growing. And I've set my goals and my rocks and my BHAG, if you will, the hairy audacious goal. So
I love all the lingo. Yep. 100%.
So we're all into that as business owners. So it's is it working? That's the thing, is I've proven this. And one of the greatest things is that there's no competition. And one of the worst things is there's no competition. Nobody knows I exist.
Sure.
So it's getting it out there. And I'm sure I'll get competition one day when it gets big enough. But I'm also so far ahead and down the line of figuring things out that I can't be afraid of the competition. And just like with Jogging Store, and I was saying that we had Jogging Store, Superstore below us, we were still the best at it. And you just got to play your own game. Eventually, Windows and Mac, they coexist. So it's working.
We can go ahead and call out who that store is as long as you're okay with it. Because he actually booked to be on the show just today. He booked for his time. So that's Chris Carey, MA Performance. Absolutely brilliant leader there as well. They sold that, had a real good acquisition there, but he's done a very good job building that company up as well.
Yeah. He's a great guy and he's a really good business guy. And he did sell. And the new company, I was like, oh, what's going to happen? And they're like, no, we love this. Oh my God. They wish they could use it on their other sites, but they're not on Shopify. So I feel like
this is one of those apps that somebody should have right now, more almost than anything else. And a couple of the things that I like about this, a couple of the problems, I'm seeing a trend with a lot of increased returns for people. And I don't know if you're noticing this as well, but looking at a lot of websites, there's an increase in returns. And I think there's two possible reasons for this that are probably playing a part. One is, whether we want to call it a recession or not, we're in a financial downturn. And so people will sometimes buy things and have some second doubts, or they wear it once, they didn't get the reaction they wanted or whatever, right? And so they're returning stuff. And the other reason is, I know that there's an increase of people who buy from multiple stores just to see which one gets there faster, and then returning the other ones. Now, that's not used, so it's a little bit different. But the idea here is there is an increase in returns, and having a process and an app that can very quickly streamline that is cash flow. And cash flow right now is absolutely king. So I think
that's what they were saying. Like, they had this pile, and it's just the CFO looks at it like, this is we got to get rid of this current asset here. Like, we want to move this. And so absolutely. I mean, there's situations where, okay, like makeup doesn't work. You don't want to spread herpes. You can't, although I was going to say sex toys, you can't return. However, I do have a sex toys site using it, and I sent them an email like, I don't know, man, this is like, he's like, no, it's all of our samples. I was like, oh yeah, that's brilliant. Right. So they're using it for that. I mean, clothes, you can usually put them back on the shelf, although I've had a couple of successful clothing stores, but anyone who gets returns that can't be sold is, I called Allbirds because they're on Shopify. There's some big sites on Shopify. And they were like, this sounds cool, but we actually donate the returns. Like, all right, well, as long as you've got a solution, I mean, I'm not in this to just be greedy and try to take. I want to be helping. If you got a solution, that's good. And if you could donate, even better. But that's not true for a lot of businesses. They need that cash flow to keep the business going. So, right. So it's really fun helping people. It is.
Let's there's so much that I want to talk about with that, but I know that you also had something else you told me about that I really want to make sure we get to. And we called it out a little bit here, hinted at it in the introduction, your COVID story. And while maybe, somebody hears the word COVID and they think, I want to run away from anything that has to do with COVID. I get that. But this is interesting. And I think part of your journey of where you're at right now and like this mindset shift that you've had, I don't want to steal any more thunder. Walk us through this.
So, right. So it was 2020, early COVID, or not too early, thankfully, but I contracted it with, I was playing hockey. I'm in really good shape. I work out, I train, I meditate, I eat right. I did not think I was a candidate for severe COVID. And I do have a heart issue that wasn't listed as one of the the pre-existing conditions, but it turns out it probably was. They can't confirm that, but I believe it was. So anyways, I contracted COVID, and it started off, it felt like the flu sort of thing, but it kept getting worse and worse. And this is October of 2020. So it was post them saying, hey, we're using ventilators. So they had stopped doing that, or that was the school of thought then. And then it was pre-vaccine, of course. And it was also pre that big wave, just a couple weeks before the next big wave, if you can remember back in 2020. So anyways, I have it, and it's getting worse and worse. I'm at home. The love of my life here, my girlfriend, we've been living together 10 years. We have a blended family, and we were locked in here. Nobody could even walk our dog. People were afraid at that time that maybe you could contract it from the dog, or we couldn't do our own groceries. I mean, it was really hard on the family, but ultimately I am to the point where I can't breathe at home. And my fever is over 103 for days. I got to get in. And I started to then get completely just seeing illusions. And it was, I went in the hospital, and it was a dramatic moment because I am like the anti-hospital. I'm an anti-drug sort of thing. If I can do it naturally, I will.
Sure.
And I get to the hospital, and as soon as I got on oxygen, I knew this is where I need to be. But it did keep getting worse, and they started off with just a little like grandpa sort of nose thing to this, eventually a hair dry going up my nose. It was the first hospital, they're like, we need to move you to the ICU. You need more oxygen. And ultimately, I'm on this mask, and I'm breathing like this, and I'm in the ICU. And I don't know if viewers or listeners have been in an ICU before, but the windows are glass. You can see body bags going by and cleaners coming in. And I am in a COVID-only hospital now at this point, and which was Bethesda, which was here in it was in St. Paul, and I can't see anyone. Everyone's got just their eye slits showing, and even then they're wearing glasses, and some were dressed in the full ET thing. I have no
Yeah.
connection, like that human connection, and I had an iPad there where I could call home, and it's just getting worse and worse. And ultimately, I wake up. I mean, I'll go into this story, and I'll try to make it briefer than I normally would, but I wake up after a long night of trying to sleep. It's breathing for me. The machines are going in the room. It's so loud and beeping, and I took a Valium to try to sleep, and I wake up and I look and I see Dr. Goldberg is standing next to me. I'd never seen Dr. Goldberg. He's got a name tag. I'm a Jew. I say to him, I said, Dr. Goldberg, I'm in the tribe. Like, I would never say that. I don't know what caused me to say that, but
Sure.
he says, I'm a rabbi and I'm here to pray with you. And so we
Oh.
do the Shema, which is like this whole prayer that I happen to have done business with Hasidic Jews. And so every time I do them, we do tefillin and then we do the Shema. I'm not a very religious person. I identify as a Jew. But I did the Shema and I know it. And as soon as we finish, like the last word, and he gives me this coin and he puts it in my hand. And he says, all things are unfolding as they should and things are meant to be. And you're going to be okay. You're going to live through this. And I was like, my eyes are glowing and I'm almost like, I couldn't cry. I couldn't go cough, couldn't sneeze. I was like being on Everest. I was just full of
Wow.
COVID in my lungs. With that, he finishes it, the doors open, and they slide me, and this is when I realized why they have Gore-Tex sheets in the hospital, and they slide me onto a gurney, and they are running me down the hall. And I'm this mask on, what's happening? What's happening? They're like, we think you have a blood clot in your heart. And I'm like, oh my God. And I get in there, we get the results, there's no blood clot. I come back, they wheel me in the room, and they're like, listen, we got to tell you something. I said, listen, where's the rabbi? I need to talk to Dr. Goldberg. And they said, there's no rabbi here. And I said, well, no, Dr. Goldberg was right here. I was with them when you guys came to get me. And they said, I'm sorry, there's no Dr. Goldberg here and there's no rabbi here. And I have to tell you,
Jeez.
you've got about 20 liters left we can give you. What? And I said, well, what does that mean? They said, you got about 2 hours to live. You need to get your affairs in order. And I said, I could not believe, like, oh my God, like it's 5 a.m. And so I'm wind up trying to like call my Carrie, my love, and it's ringing. She's not getting. I went to find my iPhone and I start pinging it so it makes a loud noise. And she wakes up and she calls and she's hysterical. And I said, listen, this is what they've told me. I swear there was a Dr. Goldberg here. I don't know what's happening. I prayed with a rabbi, but like I gotta go. And she's like, where are you going? And I said, I just got to tell you, remember the 911 doc. And we have, everyone should, if you're listening, like of course I have a will, but there's a 911 doc that's a shared doc with her that just says, what are my passwords to my phone, my password to my computer? Where is everything? How do you run my business? Just the how-to of scenario if something happened. And she says, okay. And she's crying and I couldn't cry. And one to think about, if you want to sit and pause and think about this, what do you do when somebody says, and you're tied into a hospital bed and you have 2 hours to live. And all I could think of is, well, I'm not going to call my kids because I never thought I was going to die. And I didn't want to go there. And if I have 2 hours to live, every thought forward is going to be positive. And so there's no saying I'm not going to die. That's a negative. I'm going to live. And I went through my whole life from my very first memory I have. I actually even remember, probably because I was late at potty training, but I remember my mom changing my diaper. Like I went back to gratitude for everything I could think of going up throughout my life. I've got time here, a couple of hours, and gratitude to the day I was at, to all the people around me. And well, did this rabbi exist? And was this just a call somebody sent to me? And where do I want to be forward? And what do I want to be going forward? And I've been putting off this whole van life thing for a long time. I want to buy a van, and one day I'm going to walk my daughter down the aisle and the things I'm going to do in my life. And so with that, by the way, I then remember that he gave me a coin, and I look around for the coin, don't have it. And I call the nurses in, they come in, they put their outfit on that they have to do every time they walk in. And I'm like, where's that coin? And they look around, and sure enough, they find the coin. I'm like, he did exist. He did exist. And I'm holding the coin. And turns out, a side story, Carrie called the doctor's office. the reason they don't know who he is, because everyone's from everywhere, this COVID only ward that was like, people were flying in, nurses and doctors, so they didn't know who he was, and they were just
Sure.
moving along. But anyways, and they didn't even know he was a rabbi. So then Carrie calls the doctor, and he says, I really have good faith that this guy's going to make it. And she said, wait, so you're a doctor and a rabbi? He said, yeah. And she said, your mother must be so proud. Like, there's another thing to say. So anyways, I had this hope, and I felt another breath about 10 minutes, I don't know, a half hour into it. I'm like, I feel something. It's like almost like a fever broke, but I didn't have a fever. And they said, oh, we're not going anywhere. And sure enough, I slowly got better and better. What did it? Was it the drugs? Was it the time? Was it the belief in the rabbi? Was it, who knows? Was it my attitude? I don't know, but I sort of been sticking with this, that we play the game at home. If you can, we try and say, like, let's, for the next hour, everything's going to be positive. Let's not say a negative thought, and be positive about our lives and how much we have to be grateful for. And so, and by the way, from the hospital bed, I bought a new Mercedes van, a Bear cargo van, and I then spent the last 2 years building it out, and I found a new passion, as we're saying about passion. And I also put work a little more. My work is very important, and I love my work, but it doesn't have to be the top priority in my life. And so I've moved that down on the totem pole of importance. And I've been getting on the road with Carrie and with Alone. And to top off, as you said earlier in the show, that I had, for the last 4.5 months, my kids both graduated high school. I have 2 stepkids that I love, and they live here, but I've also said to Carrie, like, I have to go a little bit. And I got on the road, and I've just been traveling the road, and I just love it. I've been in this van that I built out all by my own self, with a couple friends helping here and there, I've had this like traveling in the light sort of feel. And one time the story that you and I had mentioned earlier was, I was traveling across Texas, and I get to Uvalde, and I camped out there in my van one night. I'm driving from there. I forgot the next town, but it was a good, 60 miles in, and I'm getting hungry for breakfast. And I decide I'm going to pull over and make myself some breakfast. I'm in no hurry at all. I have no time. I'm not even sure what day it is. I don't label anything like that when you're on the road. You just get to be. And
sure,
I pull over, and I'd been kiteboarding down in the Gulf of Mexico, and I'm working my way to Tucson. And as I pull into this roadside picnic table, there's a homeless man walking, and we are 60 miles from any town in a desert. And he's walking, and he happens to be coming at the same time I'm coming into this spot, to this little picnic area with shade and some picnic tables. And he's walking over to me. And he's got a fanny pack, and we're in Texas here, like anyone can carry a gun. And I'm thinking, I went to that for a second, and I thought, like, I travel in the light, like, let's just be a place of trust, and everyone's a human being. And so he walked up, and he's reaching in his fanny pack, and he pulls out a phone, and he says, do you think you could charge my phone for me? I'm really having a bad day. And I said, absolutely. Would you like some breakfast? And eyes lit up, and we wound up I had an acai bowl. He's never had acai. And I had made a smoothie for him. We wind up talking for over an hour about just our life stories. And he's a little bit younger than me, in his 40s, but he had a really just great story of how he even wind up to this place, but how this even happened in life. And he was just a human being. I gave him a little money, and I set him on his way. Had he been going the way I was going, I would have taken him, but it was back. And I actually now look back and like, why didn't I just turn around and help the guy and take him? I don't know, but we went our ways, and he was so grateful. I was grateful. We just had this like smiling, magical shared experience of each other. And because I believe I'm just open to what's coming my way, and trying to take things with positive light. So that's my little bit of a COVID story. Yeah.
More than a little bit. I mean, I don't know if you saw, I was up there trying to show. It's like, I got goosebumps here, although I think now that's called like ASMR or whatever. But I mean, just chills down my spine as you describe this. And I think one of the things that you said that I really like, it was the idea of, thinking positively. And I think that sometimes maybe in our modern age, we are so quick to dismiss that as being maybe not real science. But there's so much to this, and there's two things along those that I like. One is Simon Sinek has something he talks about with that idea of like you can't think of the negative or whatever, or you can't like unthink of something. I forget exactly the way he words, but he says, don't think of an elephant. And sure enough, everybody's brain thinks about an elephant. And he said skiers will say something to that effect too, where it's like if you're skiing, you don't say don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, because then all you see are the trees and you're going to run into the tree. And when you're skiing down, you say see the path, see this path, see the path, and then the trees almost disappear and you see the path. And I like that though, to the same idea of what you were saying, which is just don't focus on I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die. Focus on I'm going to live. I'm going to live. I'm going to live.
Right.
And
right.
we recognize it, I think, in athletics where, golfers will tell you that they see the putt go in before they putt it. But I've actually seen medical studies that back this up very well. There's a study, I believe it was in 2008, Cleveland Clinic did this. So this isn't some small rinky-dink place where you're not sure, right? Where they actually had people imagine working out. I think it was maybe over the course of 8 weeks, just pretend in their minds, pretend that they were working out. And I think it was, bicep curls or something like that. And at the end of these 8 weeks, their strength had gone up by, I want to say it was like 25% increase in strength in their biceps. They didn't work out. They just imagined working out. And so I think that we misunderstand just how powerful our thoughts are. And then even maybe taking that a step further, our words are. And so I think that you
there's
nailed
someone
that.
that says the words are your wand. Forgot who came up with that, but it's true. And I agree that my saying is don't look where you don't want to go. And we used to Nordic ski and try to stay in the tracks and get out of the tracks. Don't look where you don't want to go. Stay on that track. And same thing with mountain bike. Right. Don't look over the edge when you're on a cliff. Just look where you want to go. And then there's this one, I'm going to read this because it's on my desk every day. It's from Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And he, of course, was a Holocaust Auschwitz survivor. So, yes, and so that's been sort of a theme in my life now of what's the priority? Saying, as Warren Buffett says, saying no is one of the most important things. And getting rid of things that are taking negative energy from me, or taking that negative energy. And my attitude on life, it's been really, now I can look back and think I'm really grateful for that 2020 COVID experience that I had. I don't really wish it on anyone. And just to correct, you said near death. I view the near death experiences as someone who sees the light. I was never there. I say close to death. But okay. So yes, for those.
Well, yeah, for the pedantics in us. Yes. When I just literally forgot where I was going to go with that. But I don't know. I lost my train of thought on that one. But okay, so if we go back to the idea of, let's say that a lot of other people who are listening feel the same way. Entrepreneurs who are saying, yeah, I would like for that to be my priority. Maybe they haven't had to go through that experience where they're saying, I see the value in what you're saying, and I would like to figure out how to deprioritize some of the craziness of the hustle culture within entrepreneurship. What are practical ways to do that? And I know that sometimes it's easy to just say, hey, well, you just got to do it. But like, are there practical things that you've been able to implement to make that happen?
It's honestly been more on just my attitude. I'm a human being, and I have chosen, I used to hear when people said, happiness is like a fleeting moment. I've taken the different approach of like, no, I'm living in this place of gratitude and happiness, but anger happens, sadness happens, grief happens. So we're just humans. We're all going to experience all these things. But from the core, I'm going to be in this place of really it's gratitude. I mean, happy is kind of a funny word. I don't know. We all want our kids to be happy. Like, what is that? What?
Yeah. Not happy.
Yes. We want to be present, and I don't want to be on my phone that much, but sometimes I am. And I've been sucked into a reel I'm not on the
Sure.
Instagram or that stuff, but on YouTube or whatever. So we're fighting. It's a constant practice. That's all it is. It's practice. Just like in the game, you don't score every goal every shot you shoot in hockey, but we practice. And so I've been really gentle on myself too, of days where it's not productive and I got stuck into doing something I didn't want to do. Like, it's okay. Like, this is just part of the journey, and it's my attitude is really, and I'm not as in a rush anymore. And I know friends of mine, and I've told this story too with the COVID, and they're like, you kind of had that attitude before. And I guess a little bit I did. My mom certainly preached to me of that everything happens for a reason, and this too shall pass, and all the things we've heard. And to have this was really an in my face. I am mortal. I'm not going to be here forever. And so let's make the best of these days. And what's really important? Do I need what's more important, a new thing or is an experience with my children? I'm going to choose that experience every time. So,
well, and that reminds me of a parable, and I don't remember how old this is, maybe, ancient parable, but talks about and I'm probably going to butcher, there's a lot of variations out there. There's like a farmer, and I think it's something along the lines of maybe his horse runs away and his neighbors come over and they say, oh, what terrible, misfortune you've had. He goes, well, whether it's good or bad, I don't know. Right. And then it's like this wild horse comes up and they catch this wild horse and they're like, oh, what good luck you have. And he goes, well, whether it's good luck or bad luck, I don't know. And then his son starts, like learning to ride the horse and gets kicked off and breaks his leg. And they go, oh, what terrible luck you have. You go, well, whether it's good or bad, I don't know. And then the army comes and recruits, every able-bodied man in their village. And they're like, they can't take the son then because he's injured. He broke his leg. And they go, oh, what good luck you have. And so whether it's good luck or bad luck, I don't know. And I think so many times we're so quick to assign whether something is good or bad without realizing all of the other implications that result from this. And so to your point, it's like, was getting COVID a good or a bad thing? Well, in this situation, maybe it was exactly the right thing that needed to happen for you to be in the position that you are, to learn what you needed to learn. And I think it's good for us to recognize that we have unique autonomy over how we learn and grow from every situation in life.
Yes, our attitude. That's our attitude on life. You're right. And you didn't butcher it too bad. It's a Zen Buddhist story.
There you go.
And it's called Good Luck, Bad Luck.
Okay. I should have had you tell it.
No, you got the main point across. You're absolutely right. And I think about that often when something happens that we just don't know. I mean, my daughter is 19, or 18, she just got a ticket and she called me and she's upset, like, but maybe it saved her from something else that we don't know. Right. And I just decided I can show up and I can reprimand her or whatever. Like, all right, you need to slow down. Like, what did you learn from this? I don't have to take it as a bad thing. So I'm trying to do that with a lot. I say trying because it is always a practice. Sometimes we react and I try to work on, let's not react, let's just respond. And how do we turn this into a positive? And how can I change what I just thought or said into a positive? So
Another piece of practical advice I would recommend to anybody that's listening that I think you would agree with, and tell me if you disagree, is, if you haven't already, probably implement EOS or some version of some type of entrepreneur operating system, something like that, because it's very easy as entrepreneurs to get into that crazy cycle, and you need to have that process where you can have the right people in the right seats, and you have the structure, and you enable your team to be able to make decisions. And I was on that path for a while, and we just implemented EOS almost 2 years ago now, and it was a game changer for me, right? At the point where it's like I could finally start shifting some of that burden onto people who are maybe even better qualified to handle some of those things, because I was able to get out of my own way, if that makes sense.
Yes. Oh my God. Particularly, like, I didn't go to business school. I've been doing business a long time. I didn't know how to build a $20 million company. And you're right in that, whether it's Vern Hardish has one, there's a handful of them out there.
Yes.
EOS is a great one, but you're right. And having it with a facilitator, or what do they call them? Implementer. It's like having a therapist there where you decide what are your roles, and what's his roles or her roles. And so, and coming up with a plan and setting up, as long as, if I'm thinking I want to be a $20 million business and my partner's like, I just want a lifestyle $3 million
Sure.
business. Well, we're on different pages, so we need to get on the same page. And once everybody's on the same page and going in that direction, it's much more powerful and frankly more fun. And yes, I do recommend that. I only know a couple successfully that did it themselves and is a unique kind of person, but I'm a big believer of having hired therapists. I mean, my girlfriend and I we go to therapy every now and then. Sometimes we gotta we need a third party here to hash this out because I'm not seeing your way, you're not seeing mine.
Mediator. Yeah.
Yes. And so the implementers are really phenomenal. And those 2-day retreats you do, that's part of the program. And yeah, I'm a big fan, obviously. Yeah, Traction's it's a great book. It's a great process. And those, by the way, Gino didn't invent anything there. I mean, maybe he's got some trademarks on something, but he's really taking other people's ideas and he just kind of lumped it all together.
Sure.
It was Jim Collins, Good to Great, who did the BHAG, the Big Hairy Audacious Goal. I mean, there's all those. I mean, I'm sure he took some from Vern. It's just putting it together to a system, and I strongly believe in them.
Well, so. And if you're an entrepreneur, then oftentimes you see maybe the breakdowns in a lot of other systems, and you're quite sure that you can come up with the better system, right? And I can remember being in that boat for a while. I was like, well, I'm just going to create my own entrepreneur operating system, more or less, right? And it's like, I'm going to do this and this and this. The reality is that's not my business, and so I'm focused on my business. I'm not focused on doing that, and you never get around to actually creating this thing that you thought that you would make that was going to be even better than whatever that was. And sometimes it's just saying, look, here's a tool, like here's a wheel, it's a circle. Let's just start with that. You can maybe optimize that into a triangle or a square later if you want, but let's just start with what's been proven and just go from there.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's powerful. I recommend it. I mean, you do have to be a certain size, although, even on my startup, I was already using the old sheets. What's my 3-year target? What are my uniques? Things like that, I found it even good, probably not enough to hire an implementer early on, but at least having read the book and know the book and have the sheets that they offer, I'm sure they're free online, that you can at least start filling in the gaps and be thinking in that direction. It's really a great tool.
Well, and what's interesting is I would typically say that, it makes sense to at least have a couple people in the company. I do know of one company that started it from employee one, from what I understand. And this person as well. Matt Meents did this with Yardstick. So Justin Koffenberg over at Raleigh Ventures, he was the one who was telling me that Matt was starting with EOS from employee one, day one, like strict EOS implementation. And it's worked out very well for them. And I've been meaning to follow up with him and I almost want to kind of document his journey. Maybe that'd be a good episode sometime of what was it like to start when you don't have right person, right seat yet, because there aren't any seats necessarily.
Oh, Matt would be a great guest. He is fascinating. He's a really good story, a strong entrepreneur. He too is a classic visionary like yourself and myself, of an ADD guy who's all over the place. And and that doesn't surprise me. Yes, I know he was a big fan of EOS, and I actually did it as well. When I started, that was the very first, let me just start to feel, what are my core values of this business? And so I started that early too. Yeah, you don't need to have a big company to do it, but you wouldn't hire somebody to implement it until you have a team, an executive team. But
transitioning a little bit into the personal side of who you are, although I feel like so much of that has been woven throughout what we're doing. One other question that I thought was interesting and unique when we were talking was, what kind of vehicle do you drive?
Right. Oh, that's funny you asked that. I do think, I'll say what kind of vehicle I drive. I think what kind of vehicle you drive says a lot about you. Doesn't have to be, it's all part of it. Actually, what kind of car, maybe what year. Are you the type of Steve Jobs drove, got a new Mercedes every 6 months. So he had a reason behind it. So he didn't have to he could be anonymous with his plates or whatever it was. How clean is your car on the outside, or how clean is it on the inside? Are you one that made modifications to it? Are you one that just doesn't care? I think it says a lot about personality. I happen to drive just an F-150, and I think it's a 2017. This is 2023 right now. So 6 years old. I like that it's aluminum. It gets better, good gas mileage. It could be dirty on the outside, but generally I like my vehicle clean on the inside. I'm a barefoot kind of guy as much as I can
Sure.
be. And as soon as I get in my car, I tend to, at least in the summer, I take my sandals off and I have bare feet. So I like a clean carpet on my feet. More so than I don't really care what the outside looks like. It's kind of got dings on it. It doesn't really bother me. And my biggest thing when I went to buy a truck was it has to have a sunroof. Um,
Mm.
and I buy used, I don't buy new on that. Yeah. So in fact, I did at one point, I bought a BMW and I had an X5 and I thought like, this is success. Like, what is it? And the more I'm driving, like, what am I? Because I don't know if this is me. I mean, it is great. It's this German engineered. It's great. And I was questioning it. And one day I got up for my early morning walk at sunrise and the car's gone. And
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God, they stole the car. Well, one thing I liked about it is you could leave the keys in it and you just hit the push button thing. It's not advised in the city here. And so somebody took off
Sure.
and they actually went to wall. I saw like they had my credit cards, my wallet was there. I'd done a swim the day before. And so I had left everything in there. And so I called the police and I'm like, I know where they went. It's on video. You can go up to Walgreens or Walmart down in south of here in one of the suburbs. And they're like, we don't have time for this, man. Your car's stolen. If we get it back, we'll call you. Like, really? You don't want to do anything? Like, just,
Wow.
I guess they were too busy with other stuff. But also for me, I was upset and grieved it for not even 5 minutes. And it was like, this thing wasn't meant to be anyways.
Yeah.
I'm insured. Maybe they needed more than I do. And if it comes back, it does. If it doesn't, it's okay. And I was like, I'm better in my F-150 anyways. And I'd been driving a 5-speed 2001 F-150 with a stick because I wanted my kids to learn the manual. And that thing was rusting out and getting dangerous
Love
for
it.
kids to get in. But so that's what I drive. How about you?
Yeah, I'm actually right there with you. F-150 as well. 2011. So you got me beat a little bit, but it's got plenty of nicks and dings and some rust now. And I tell people that it's like I don't just drive a truck, I drive an actual truck, a real truck. Because it's not a real truck unless you've got some of that stuff on there. And this thing has been put through the ringer with more Menards trips than you could ever possibly imagine. Fixing up a 150-year-old house, 153 actually now. And so it's a real truck, which I think we talked about as well. There was a buddy of mine, Alan Burt, runs a company called Blue Stout, and he talked about on Twitter the one day. He was like, "Oh, I just got a new truck," and I was like, "Good, go put a dent in it, and then I'll call it a truck." Right? But right now, I'm not calling it a truck if you don't have any dents in it.
My father-in-law, ex-father-in-law, who I really admired, and he's passed, but he bought a new F-150. I don't know, it was every 10 years or so, and he took a crowbar to it and just hit it one time.
What?
He said, "Take the fender, literally." And he said, now it's a truck, and threw the crowbar on the back. Like, yeah, some people are like that. I don't mind the dings. I don't like rust, but I now have an aluminum. That's the advantage of the new F-150s. Although probably the next car will be electric, but I thought about buying electric and I'm an environmentalist. I'd call myself, as to a degree. But I thought, all the research I did, if you're going to buy a new car, it's not as environmentally friendly as just keeping your old. So this truck serves me fine, and I'm going to drive it to the ground, I'm sure. And my kids will still be pissed at me.
No,
although they did. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, my son thanked me. He was in Italy for a semester abroad, and he had to rent a car, and they only offered stick shifts. And he called and said, "All right, Dad, all right, thank you for making me learn to drive the truck and the stick shift." And he also thanked me for learning a second language, which I made him go to Spanish immersion as a kid. So
that is good. They usually come back around, don't they, and say, "Oh, thanks." Eventually, I was just going to comment on. I appreciate the foresight and thought that you had about, what's the more environmental decision in that situation, and there's not necessarily a neck for buying an electric vehicle or continuing to keep your used one, right? Like there are environmental things on both sides of that. There's a lot of things. I think it's a much more complicated problem than we oftentimes like to think of that. One of the things that I tell my daughters, 13, 10, and 7, is that we couldn't actually all switch to electric, or we couldn't all switch to solar. We couldn't all switch to wind or geothermal or any of them. If we switch the entire world to one particular source of energy, we'll destroy our Earth in every single way possible. it takes a blend of all of these different energy sources, I think, to be able to find like this homeostasis as much as possible.
I agree, and we don't need to go into politics, but I have
Sure.
that view of like, are we rushing this electric? There's no doubt it provides good, and I've driven them, and oh my God, and it's cheaper if you have a solar on your roof. Like this makes perfect sense,
Yeah.
but where are these batteries coming from, or are we moving too fast? And I don't claim to know, I'm not the expert,
Same.
but I
Yeah.
did think of when I was buying it, like, I don't need to go out to buy one just because I can. Like, this truck is fine. Why do I need a new truck? I don't. And one day I will, and that'll probably be my next one. And by then we'll probably have more of the infrastructure. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I did put
No,
some
that's
thought
good.
into that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we talk about EOS and we talk about our mission, vision, values, the values that we have at Element, we have three of them, which is be innovative, be accountable, and be human. And when you talk about being human, the thing that we talk about here, and I'll just read what it is here. It says, we are human beings. We have emotions. We have families and friends and pets. We have good days and bad days and even some meh days. We have hopes and dreams and fears and heartbreaks. And the same is true for our clients, our team, our vendors, and everyone else that we come in contact with, even the people on the road as we drive to work. So we will make sure that we are a positive influence on every precious human life to the best extent possible. We will take the time to listen. We will communicate purposefully, thoroughly, and kindly. We will opt for more lighthearted, playful communication whenever possible, while recognizing the need for seriousness at appropriate times as well. And while we do have people relying on us, counting on us, we recognize that we are not perfect, that we need to be as kind to ourselves as we are to others. Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. We recognize that if we want to be a positive influence on those around us, we must protect our hearts by showing ourselves grace as well. We must recognize that we are not alone, take time off, establish good habits, and advocate for ourselves and our teammates against unrealistic expectations.
Wow. Okay. Have you posted that somewhere? Are you?
No, not yet.
Did you write?
This will be the first time.
Yeah. That's, you should post that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've heard of desiderata. I mean,
No.
you'd have to look it up. I'm not going to read it, but desiderata, we should put it maybe in the show notes or some.
Sure.
But that's one of those, something similar to that. I mean, that's pretty profound, really, really nice. And I try to live by that too. Yes, there is people in my life that I don't want to be around, avoid.
Sure.
Loud vexations to the spirit is what they say in desiderata, but and treating, there's one I don't follow too much, but on YouTube I follow a channel called The Invisible People, and it's a homeless guy, an ex-homeless guy who goes around and interviews homeless people. And I have found myself like, you don't have to be a wealthy person to make a difference and make big difference on big levels. And maybe that's their role, but my role sometimes is just if somebody's outside the bagel shop and begging for money, can I buy you lunch? I'd be happy to do that. And then more than that, like, would you like to sit with us? And I had that with my daughter, and we bought this guy, a homeless guy, and she was 16 at the time. And at first she's like, Dad, really? Like, yeah, this isn't, we all had a great meal together. We sat and we had pizza together. So, and that little bit of giving someone attention, and not to say there is evil in the world. There is
absolutely
bad things can happen. My car got stolen, but it's okay. We'll move on. It's just a car, really. I had insurance. So,
Brad, we have talked about so much today. If I was going to try to summarize even just a fraction of this, I mean, the takeaways for somebody, then one of those would be check out returns for sale, because if you run an e-commerce store, this is going to be a cash flow improvement for you during a time when you might be a little bit more strapped for cash. So it's just a wise move. I would also say remembering that we are all human. Be kind to yourself, be kind to the people around you, your team, your vendors, your agency who's helping you grow your business during a recession. Lots of opportunity to be kind. I mean, to think positive thoughts as well, right? Like, think positively.
I appreciate the plug. It wasn't intended at all. So
no, I know it wasn't, but that's why I'm saying it.
But I appreciate that. Certainly, we're trying to help. And you have too. I know we've met in person, and I appreciate your positive outlook on life and your willingness to be vulnerable. And I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
If people wanted to connect with you, follow you, work with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Oh, that's a good one. You're not going to really follow me anywhere. I'm not that kind, but I am returnsforsale.com. And if you reach out through there, I'm Brad at returnsforsale.com. You can have my personal email, but but it all goes to me. We're a small company, and you could reach out that way. And I love chatting to people about any and all this. So yeah,
cool.
Thanks.
Well, Brad, thank you again for coming out, and everybody else, thank you for listening in, and have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, William.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.